Hey there, everyone. It's been a little while, hasn't it? Okay, so I guess the first thing I should say is a bit of an apology for why I haven't been around lately.
I suppose I should also apologize for recording this in my backyard in the middle of the night using a selfie stick. Sorry.
Well, I have had a fair number of ideas. I haven't really been putting them into finished products yet. That said, I have actually been working on a side channel here on YouTube. Now, a while back, I worked on a review video for a game on Steam, and a friend of mine actually really enjoyed it and said I should pursue working on an actual gaming channel. And so I've been working on that as my secondary channel. It's called Fatness Gaming, and you can go ahead and subscribe right over there.
Or if you're the type who prefers having a video ready to watch from the get-go, you can go ahead and check out that first review right down here. So there's stuff. Back on point.
So Sarah, one of my best friends and an artist who some of you may already know of as Delusional Dreams, who happens to also be the same person who suggested I start up the gaming channel, recently did a video on her channel about how to make plushies.
Please do go check out that video up here, or just jump straight to her channel down there. She's super awesome. I absolutely loved her video, and you guys should definitely give it a shot.
Now this is actually something I've been wanting to do for a while now. Since this is my first time doing this, she suggested I make a video of the process. Here goes nothing.
Alright, boys and girls, let's get this started. Alright, so let's be clear on this right now. This is not a tutorial video. I wouldn't suggest kind of following along. The purpose of actually doing this yourself. If you want a solid tutorial video, I definitely recommend going and seeing Sarah's video. She sums it up very well, and hers is the one that taught me how to do what I am doing in this video. So please do go check it out. I should also let you know, I also went way off in my own personal ventures with this, so this will be, well, we'll see how this goes. Now, as you can see, here I am drawing and cutting out my paper template, which I will use to determine the size and dimensions of the fabrics cut and where to sew on that. You'll notice that the back template piece, it was shaped differently, along with, if I remember correctly, being bigger than the bottom piece, because I wanted to cut it in specific ways that were going to be affected by how I did it. Like, for instance, the square head, I intended to make a certain kind of cut on it, with the intent of sewing the separate sides together to give it a sort of rounded effect. And here is my fabric. It is blue with white lines. Or is it white with blue lines? Anyway, I traced around the template on the fabric with both the front and back pieces, and then made sure to add a little more on. You'll notice there, the one smaller piece of template, I kind of added a bit more to the back when I realized some of what I was doing here. I think it was a good idea that I did. That should make more sense when we get towards the end of this. And then I do the same thing with the other one, and I think I made sure to make this one a little bigger because of the dimensions I wanted this little guy to have. And then I cut out the fabric from there. And I made sure to leave a gap between the drawn line and the edge of the fabric itself. So, yes. Again, if you want full details and a better understanding of how all this works, please do go watch Sarah's video. She is more experienced with this than I am, and I'm a derp. So, yes. Anyway, I've got both of my pieces cut out here, and I'm overlaying them on top of each other, and you'll see right here that I only had the one type of fabric, so I went ahead and grabbed a pink highlighter and drew a little bit of a design on it. You can see for yourself how that ended up turning out at the end. And then I have to grab my needle and thread and proceed to sew it all up. That got really weird, I'm sorry. And there we go. I did actually cut out the majority of the sewing, as with a number of other parts. It's probably better that way because I think I spent hours sewing this together. This probably will take the longest out of the entire process, so it would be wise to keep yourself entertained in other ways. Maybe have a video or some music on as you work. I was at this probably for a couple of days before I finished, and there's a lot to it. I sewed the little guy all up, and then his tail I sewed the one piece together, and then the next job would have been to turn the whole little guy inside out. And let me tell you, this was a little bit concerning because I didn't want to tear apart the sewing that I had just done. I am new to sewing as well. I've done it before. I once fixed a stuffed animal of mine. I've never really done it to the extent that I have done it here, having put an entire stuffed animal together. Okay, so what you're seeing now, that I've gotten it all sewn up and turned inside out, and you'll notice I did use a screwdriver to kind of make sure that I got his feet and tail popped out too. It was time to stuff the little guy with stuffing. This part also took some work because he was so small, it was hard to make sure that he was filled up properly. I had to use a screwdriver to make sure I got the stuffing into the tight spots like his feet. Tried to make sure that he was properly stuffed. I think I overstuffed his tail though, and didn't fully stuff the area where the last hole was left open so that I could stuff it. But regardless, I did fill him up, and then sewed up the underside where I was putting all the stuffing in through, and, well, that part was a little interesting as well. I think you'll see that when we're done. And here we have our little stuffed friend who looks like one of those salamanders that are like blind and live underground and stuff. I actually may be getting my animal facts crossed here. Not sure that that is real. Anyway, after that I went ahead and just did a little bit of repair, I would say, just fixing it up a little bit before I move on to the next step. And so next step would be to give him a face. So I went ahead and grabbed some little beads and some of those little sparkly round things. Since they all had holes, I just threaded them up together and sewed them onto his face. And yes, they were two different colors, and I am totally cool with that. Take a look at his little face now. So I considered what I could do next, and so I decided to go with one of these little strands here, and I was told at some point that I could glue that on. I didn't do that. I sewed it on. I sewed the whole thing, maybe not the whole thing, but I did sew it on, and I think there's a little bit of repair that needs to be done already on my sewing job. Like I said, not really used to this whole business of sewing a lot, but I went ahead and attached it, and you may notice a little bit of fray at the end of that little strand there. I did cut off the end because it was too long, but I did try to keep some of that on so it would be almost like a little lion's tail or an elephant's tail with the little tuft of hair at the end, and that would pretty much do it. And here we have our finished little friend. I was thinking about naming him something along the lines of Derpabilly, maybe just Billy. So I'm not exactly sure of full timing on how long this took me to finish. He is clearly a first-timer though, as you can see. There are spots where my sewing could have used some work. I may already have to do some repairs on one of his front feet. The little guy has a single toe. I guess he's a lefty like me. The sequence strand seems to have held up pretty well. I like the way it looks from the side, but like I said, there is a spot where I think some of it's starting to come apart. My sewing may need to fix that. Here are his little bead eyes. And you can still see the design, even though I'm pretty sure I drew it on the other side of the fabric. It did give an extra bit of color to him, so I'm okay with it. The tail, which I overstuffed, keeps him from sitting down properly, I would say. The little tuft of hair kind of worked out. The underside, which I mentioned earlier, where I was putting the stuffing in and then sewing it up again, I'm not sure I considered how I was going to sew that up in post, and it kind of looks like I did surgery on the little guy. It's a little rougher than other spots on him. But you know what, I'm pretty satisfied with the way it turned out. This is my first time, and I like him. And, you know, I do think I will continue making these. As for right now, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. All the links that I shared earlier will be available in the description. Hopefully I stay up to date. See what happens from here. Anyway, thanks for watching. God bless. See you all later.